Hi, welcome. This is Steve Farnsworth, and I'm interviewing Janet Fouts, the CEO of Tatu Digital, or Tatu Digital. They're a digital marketing agency that helps brands deliver their story. Welcome, Janet.
Thanks for having me, Steve.
Oh, it's a pleasure. What is mindful social media?
So one of the things that we've seen in trends in businesses of late is that they're bringing in yogis and gurus and Buddhist monks to kind of help them in their business to be more mindful. And being mindful is really great in your business. You should be mindful. You should also be mindful in your marketing. And a lot of people tend to forget that. They tend to automate too much. They tend to squirt out a whole bunch of marketing spiel that nobody could possibly care about. And so they really need to be a little more mindful of who their market is, how the market wants that delivered, a lot of different factors that we tend to just blow off because we think that marketing is still marketing of old, where we could just get a billboard and everybody'd be happy.
So you're not suggesting that everybody needs to go meditate, though that wouldn't hurt, but what you're just saying is that people need to slow down and pay attention to what they're doing fundamentally.
When I say mindful, I mean thoughtful. I mean that we need to actually be mindful of who our audience is, what our message is, how they want to receive it, when they want to receive it, who that person is. And, you know, a lot of times we don't tell a full story. We don't even tell any story. We just spurt out a bunch of stuff. And that's not an effective way to market, and it's also taking up way too much time. And we could be more efficient by being more mindful.
Just kind of analogously, it's kind of in communications. Something that journalists get an awful lot of is emails. These blast emails, which are not customized or relevant to them, and people just PR people just shoot them out ad nauseum. And the difference here is like know who you're writing, so to speak, who you're talking to, and then say that specifically as opposed to some kind of mass media.
Well, it's like the press release mentality, right? I mean, who reads press releases? Nobody reads press releases. They go out, they sit there, nobody pays any attention unless those press releases are interactive. Like, you know, you send out things with Pitch Engine and you get video and there's photos and there's hot links. So those are more interactive and more engaging. They're still press releases, but, you know, maybe there's a little more interest there. There's no point in sending out that kind of stuff anymore because nobody cares.
Tell us a little about how can you. One of the things you specialize is in communicating stories. How can you tell a story, a brand story, using social media?
Well, that's really the important part. You know, we want to humanize social media. We don't want to, you know, just be sending out the same old stuff. We want people to be able to connect, and we want them to be able to connect in a very human way so that something resonates with them. And you need to pick a story that is really going to resonate with the market that you think you have. You need to pick a story that people are going to tell their friends. Wow, this is a really great product because they created it because of this problem and it solves this problem for me. You need to figure out what that story is, how many different ways that you can tell it.
And describe more about what humanizing means in actuality.
Well, a lot of marketers think that they're marketing one-to-many. And while that's very true, really it's those one-on-one human interactions that people make through social media that really gets them engaged and gets them thinking. You know, when you make a comment online, for example, maybe you send out a tweet saying, wow, I just had great customer service from Media Temple. I'll tell you what, every time I do that, every time I comment on their customer service or their support, Media Temple comes back and thanks me. Sometimes they send me an email. I love these guys, and it's because they've created that extra step. They've taken that extra step to reach out and talk to me as a human being. I don't know their names, I don't remember their names, but I do connect with them on a one-to-one, very human level instead of a broadcast, oh yeah, that was, you know, a direct mail kind of message mentality. That just doesn't work on me anymore, and I don't think it works on anybody else either.
One of the key tenets of your mindful social media is listening more, and that's one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot. What does listening more mean?
There's so much that you can learn from just listening. Let's say, for example, that you're creating buyer personas and you want to talk about your product, but you want to talk about who that market is. Well, very often, salespeople, marketers, PR people, we come up with who we think the market is, who's our dream buyer. But we don't really know until we listen. We listen to hear what people are talking about with our product. We want to hear what they're talking about our competitors' product. What's going on out there? There's lots of product development opportunities if we just pay attention. So when I say listening on social media, I'm talking about setting up alerts. I'm talking about doing searches and finding out what are people talking about, both in the center area that we're interested in around our product, because we're always very self-focused, right, in our marketing, but what are they talking about peripherally too? If, for example, you sell shoes, what do people do in your shoes? Are they hiking shoes? Where do they go to hike? Talk about hiking areas. Talk about things that are tangential that those people are interested in as well. How old are they? What media formats do they like things delivered in? All of those things can tell you a lot about a buyer, make you much more effective, so it actually streamlines taking a moment to be a little more mindful about who that person is.
How do you integrate humanity into your brand's social storytelling?
It's actually a lot easier than most people think. Some of it is letting go of the reins. We go into corporations all the time to help them with their social media and find that, somebody in the organization is locking down and wants to approve every single tweet or every single comment that's going out there. You can't be human under that pressure. It just isn't going to work. You're going to come up sounding like a robot, and then what's the point? You might as well go rent a billboard somewhere. But if you really want to communicate with people, you have to be able to respond in real time, and you have to be able to ask questions, answer questions. You want people to identify the product as a person at the other end, even if it's B2B. In B2B, you go from company to company, you talk person to person in those companies. You don't talk to a brand, you talk to a person. So you really want to make it more human and let people understand that there are people behind the brand and what their values are, hopefully relative to the brand.
What are a few things brands can do to be mindful in social media? What are a few things that social media managers can do to be mindful?
Well, the first thing obviously is listening, and that's something that I think is extremely crucial. Listening to what people say, listening to where they say it, what social networks are they using. There's a lot of generational issues. For example, boomers, they still read emails. Millennials, not so much. They want to see things on Instagram. They want to see video. They want to use Snapchat. So you need to find out where those people are, do those searches, do your homework, find out where they are and what kind of conversations they're having. You also want to focus on voice. If your target market is of a certain age, or maybe they're hikers, or maybe they're into metaphysical stuff, then you want to change your voice so that it fits with the target market. You want to talk like them, you want to be like them so that they identify with you. So those are the two main things that I think really people need to pay attention to.
What process do you use or suggest social media managers use to understand the social voice of a brand?
Well, I think it starts with listening and writing down things. We do a lot of whiteboarding because sometimes you get a room full of people and you start throwing ideas out about what is this brand about, what are our values, what are our consumers' values. If we're talking B2B, what is that company's values that we're going to talk about, and what are their competitors thinking? And we throw that all up on a whiteboard, and then we start pulling it all together so that we can start to create a voice for the brand itself. And it's a very iterative process. It never ends. So it's something that needs to constantly be growing and moving. It's a living thing.
For us, for a brand social media manager, internal or external, agency person, What are the required skills in your mind these days for a brand's social media manager?
Oh, I get that question a lot because people want to hire internally for social media management, and a lot of times, uh, because I come from a restaurant industry background, I say they let the busser do it. And they really do. They pick the youngest kid in the room and they say, well, he's on Facebook. He's got to know how to do this. And that's just so wrong. Because the thing is that you want somebody who understands your brand and what its messaging is and what your marketing is. They also have to understand what marketing is. And if you don't have some skills in marketing and or sales, it's very, very hard for you to be effective. Sure, you can say what you need to say in social media, but when things happen and crises occur, it's always inexperienced people who mess it up. And it's people who are, tried and true in marketing, in sales, that are on the ground actually answering the questions on a day-to-day basis, who can actually be really good evangelists for the company, as long as you teach them right first. That's kind of important. But you want somebody that can communicate, you want somebody that understands the messaging, you want somebody that understands marketing and how to get it out there.
Confusing the fact that young people use the tools and therefore should be in charge of those tools is a little bit like saying, well, young people love snowboarding, so let's go grab a few of them and have them teach the snowboarding school. Not that they couldn't do a good job, but they're probably not prepared to do that and have all the right training in terms of safety and instructional capabilities. And there's that real leap of faith. The really funny part about that is I speak to schools once in a while, and I find there's a lot of pressure on students. They feel this pressure from older folks to understand all social media and everything about it, and it's a little ironic, I think, that it's they have no clue about where to go. I mean, they use tools, but that doesn't give them the strategic level of guidance that they're being asked to provide.
Who hasn't had that conversation with somebody that said, oh, well, I had my teenage son do it because, he knows all this stuff. Well, they don't. They know how to use it, but knowing how to use the tools for yourself personally has nothing to do with marketing for a brand. It has nothing to do with really, community management, which is how I started in my company, is being a community manager and nurturing a community. That's a very different thing than knowing how to use Facebook.
Janet, thanks so much for joining me, and you've been delightful, and I'll have you back very soon. Have a great day.
Thanks so much, Steve.